males will often fight each other for the best territories, and they will dig a burrow known as an earth, and it's usually a deep hole under a tree or in a hillside, and they will raise their pups in it for the first few weeks of their lives, and of course they also will live in them. Foxes have very few natural predators in Britain, I mean, apart from golden eagle and white-tailed eagle. But humans are the main enemy of foxes. I mean, because humans have encroached on their territories with farms and livestock, and this is causing foxes to often go for like chickens, lambs, and ducks. So livestock, and that causes farmers to quite often retaliate and just take out their guns and shoot them. Although fox hunting has now been made illegal and it is punishable by law, it still happens. But foxes are known to be quite cunning, and so they very rarely are seen by people. And I can say that from experience because I've only caught like fleeting glimpses of them, and they are, to this day, they are the British animal that remains my nemesis. And of course, this is their range across Britain. As you can see, they're found across all of Britain except here, here, and here. And the next animal I'm going to show you is one of the most dramatic birds of prey, the osprey. Ospreys are a powerful bird, and that spend their spring and summer in the UK and the winter down in Africa. And it is a fish-eating bird of prey, and it is with a huge range of prey. Of course, ospreys are powerful birds of prey. I mean, they can tackle prey almost heavier than themselves. And they hover above the water looking out for fish with eyesight that's over 6 or 8 times more powerful than ours. Then they can drop down into the water at superb speed, thrust their talons forward and dive into the water. And quite often they will emerge with an enormous fish. And it's even incredible to me now that a bird with such a lightweight skeleton can carry a fish that probably weighs almost as much as me out of the water. And in Britain, the osprey is mainly found in Scotland and small parts of England. They come all the way from Africa to breed in the UK and are an amazing spectacle for many birders to see. And ospreys mate for life, and they will return to the same nest whenever they can. And their nest is usually built on the very top of a tall tree or on the edge of a cliff. And it can be used each breeding season, and it is enormous. The ospreys are piscivorous, which means fish eaters, and with fish making up 99% of their diet, it typically takes fish weighing about 150 to 300 kilograms and about 20 to 25 centimeters in length. So even a fish that's about 30 centimeters long could weigh almost as much as me, would be easily carried away by an osprey, because they have long, thin and curved fish hook-like talons that are used for gripping onto wet, slippery prey. And ospreys were once nearly wiped out from Britain. In fact, in the Victorian era, they suffered a huge decline, because the Victorians back then, they took a fancy to their feathers to use them as hat decorations or glove decorations, and quite a lot of birds have suffered at the hands of the Victorians for their feathers. But fortunately, thanks to the RSPB, they have been making a huge recovery and are slowly spreading back to the rest of Britain. This is the osprey's range from 1988 to 1991. There was only a few breeding pairs up in Scotland, but recently they've been starting to spread to small parts of England and Wales. And the next animal I'm going to show you is our most common bird of prey, the buzzard. Buzzards are the most common and the third largest bird of prey in the British Isles. They're found throughout Britain in all kinds of habitats, and they are quite often seen soaring above the landscapes that they call home. Buzzards are now Britain's most common bird of prey. Once persecuted and nearly driven to extinction by humans, they have made a full recovery and spread to much of Britain, inhabiting woodland, farmland, moorland, heathland, and even in urban areas, and making them not only Britain's most common raptor, but also the most widespread in the British Isles. Buzzards are large for a bird of prey, with broad, rounded wings and a short neck and tail. They have a dark brown top with a white underside, as well as large yellow feet and fierce talons for catching prey. When they soar, their wings are quite often held upwards in a shallow V shape. But up in Scotland, it's not unheard of for a buzzard to be mistaken for a golden eagle. In fact, you'll have to excuse my Scottish accent. It's known by most Highlanders as the tourist's eagle. I do apologise to many of my friends who are from Scotland if I did sound a little bit offensive. Buzzards are most commonly seen soaring across motorways in the UK. They do this because they can ride on thermals, which are rising currents of warm air. They can help them get across the countryside and looking for prey without even having to beat their wings, so they can save energy. Buzzards are found across Britain, and as I mentioned earlier, they're found mostly on farmland and woodland, but of course with their ability to adapt and also their wide range of prey, which I will get to later, it has enabled them to spread to all of Britain. Buzzards mate for life and will live in a large area with plenty of suitable nesting areas, usually nesting in a tree or on the edge of a cliff. And they are loyal birds, bonding for life, so when one of the pair dies, the other often waits a year before finding a new mate. Of course, as I mentioned earlier, buzzards feed on a wide range of prey. Of course, they feed on small mammals, birds, worms, frogs, large insects, and even carrion dead animals if it's fairly fresh. But their favourite prey of all are rabbits. And they hunt and catch their prey by chasing it down and then killing it with their large claws called talons. Then they can take their prey back to the nest where they can feed it to their chicks. Buzzards quite often leave their nesting territory to find food, but can share hunting grounds with others of their species. However, roaming buzzards can quite often run into trouble with other birds. Right here, a couple of crows are chasing a buzzard because they got way too close to their nests. Of course, also, crows are usually quite known for joining forces to drive off buzzards by dive bombing at them. But practice is called mobbing, and it's a way for buzzards to basically basically for crows to chase the buzzard away from their nests, because if they've got young, then they know the buzzard could quite potentially take them, and so they all join forces to drive them away. And in fact, smaller birds joining forces to drive off larger predatory birds is quite common behaviour. Buzzards will usually lay 2 to 4 eggs in mid-April. Now, after 33 to 35 days of incubation, the eggs will hatch and both parents will raise them together. Quite often the female will stay at the nest, protecting and feeding them, while the male hunts for food. And when the chicks are young, their prey will quite often be brought into the nest and fed to them piece by piece. But when the chicks get bigger, a whole rabbit can be brought into the nest and left for them to tear at themselves. And buzzards are best known for their ability to soar or above the habitat they live in for hours and hours without even beating their wings. And this is down to rising currents of warm air known as thermals. And how that works is they don't even have to flap their wings, they just open their wings broadly and just soar into it, and they can save massive amounts of energy. Although buzzards were once persecuted across Britain like many birds of prey, they have managed to make a dramatic recovery thanks to the RSPB and also their ability to adapt and eat a wide variety of prey. And today they are the UK's most common bird of prey and in my mind one of the most magnificent. This is the buzzard's range, as you can see, found all across Britain and Ireland. And the next animal I'm going to show you is one of my favourite garden birds, the starling. Now, starlings often divide opinion because not everyone is fond of their boisterous, noisy behaviour. But this bird is found across Britain in both farmland and in cities. Starlings are stocky black birds with short tails, triangular wings and a long pointed beak. And though they are sometimes resented for their abundance and their aggressiveness, they're still quite a dazzling bird when you get a good look. And one thing is, like, quite often they're just brown and black and speckled. But in the summer, starlings can have a vibrant green and purple in their plumage with a yellow beak, which to me is absolutely beautiful. And of course, young starlings have a greyish-brown plumage with a dark area around each eye, as you can see right there. But when they start to molt into their adult plumage in autumn, they can appear patchy with the lower half of the body with the adult plumage, but still having the same juvenile plumage on the head, neck and upper breast. Starlings are quite often found in gardens, parks and farmland. The species is widespread and abundant throughout the UK, except in the Highlands of Scotland, but they are found in greater numbers in urban areas, partly due to changes in farming practices which have driven them more and more into urban areas. Starlings are, as many people know, very sociable birds. And they usually flock together in groups of hundreds or even millions. And this is called a murmuration. And usually forms at dusk time when they group together to return to roosting sites. In fact, one of the best places in Britain to see this amazing spectacle is the Somerset Levels in the south of England.